So this essay is an exemplar. It's a model of a definition argument. And so if we were to explain what an argument of definition is, here's what we would say. A definition argument sets out criteria and then argues that whatever is being defined meets or does not meet those criteria. So in this essay, what is the author attempting to define? Food. Food, then, he argues, is something that is natural and unaltered. It's not a substitute. It doesn't have preservatives and additives to it. And he gives you all of these different criteria to consider whether or not these items are food or are not food. If you consider the structure of the essay, if you look at the first paragraph serves as the introduction. He automatically gives you an expert quotation, and that comes from Joan Gassau, who he established hers as an expert. And the quote is, "In the 34 years I've been in the field of nutrition," she said in the same speech, "I have watched real food disappear from large areas of the supermarket and from much of the rest of the eating world." So he kind of uses that as the launching point for the rest of this essay. And then you have the thesis statement as the last sentence of the first paragraph. Ordinary food is still out there, however, still being grown and even occasionally sold in the supermarket, and this ordinary food is what we should eat. That's his argument. Ordinary food is what we should be eating. Then the rest of the essay is organized around these three main ideas of how you determine what food is ordinary. And so as I was reading, I actually wrote on mine and put numbers beside those main ideas. So number one, don't eat anything your great grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. Number two, avoid food products containing ingredients that are unfamiliar, unpronounceable, more than 5 in number, or include high fructose corn syrup. And then number three, avoid food products that make health claims. So those are the three criteria by which he is defining what constitutes food. Okay, so look at that first section there, beginning in paragraph 3. Don't eat anything your great grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. What's the main point in that section of definition? What's the author claiming? What evidence does he provide? Right. And the example he gave was Go-Gurt portable yogurt. There's a little bit of yogurt in there, but there's a lot of other things too. Why have food companies done that? Why have they put yogurt in a squeezable tube? So it's a marketing tactic. So for a parent, that's a really good treat you can give your kid. They can eat it independently. It's kind of fun to eat. It's tasty because they've amped it up with lots of sugar. But yogurt in and of itself probably doesn't need all of that flavoring and food dye and sugar in order to have good health effects. Yogurt in and of itself is probably good for you, but then you start adding the strawberry flavoring, the dye to make it look like strawberry, and all the sugar and all the preservatives, it's probably not going to be good. I like the word he uses in paragraph 5, foodish products. I thought that was a good example of diction, that these really aren't food, but they're food-like products. And then that last sentence of paragraph 5, I underlined and starred it because I think it's critical to the argument. Don't eat anything incapable of rotting is another personal policy you might consider adopting. Can you think of a food that will not rot? Twinkies. Why? Why will they not rot? If you leave them sitting out, why will they not rot? They'll go out of date. All the preservatives that are in them. They're delicious. It's cake with cream in the middle of it. They're absolutely delicious, but they're filled with preservatives so that they have a longer shelf life because they have to come from the manufacturing site. They have to travel on a truck. They have to be placed in the grocery store. They're going to sit on the shelf for a couple of weeks before they're purchased. They may sit in your pantry or on your countertop before you eat them. So you may be eating it 6 weeks after it's actually produced. Now, in my home, if I make a cake from scratch, we don't allow it to sit out for 6 weeks before we eat it. We eat it pretty quickly because, one, it's going to mold, and two, we like cake, so we don't let it sit around very long. But those Twinkies have been in production for a long, long time, and when you get them as a consumer, you're eating something that has been there for a while. Have you ever seen the videos on YouTube of McDonald's hamburgers? Oh my. There's one YouTube video, I think it's like a 25-year-old hamburger from McDonald's that still hasn't molded, it still hasn't rotted because it has so many preservatives in it. So if you buy a McDonald's hamburger and you mistakenly leave it in the bag in the back seat of your car, it's not going to rot. You can leave it in there for years and it's not going to rot. And they're delicious, right? We like to eat McDonald's cheeseburgers because they taste good, but they're filled with preservatives. Same thing about their fries. If you drop one of the fries between the seat and the console of your car, and 3 weeks later when you're vacuuming it, it still looks like a French fry, doesn't it? Because it has not rotted. It's filled with preservatives. So the advice given here is don't eat it if it doesn't rot, and if your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize it as being food. Your great-grandmother, in all likelihood, cooked what we might call clean food, right? You've heard of the clean food movement, where you only buy things that are actually food items. They're not food substitutes. My own personal piece of advice, when I go into a grocery store to shop, I try to shop only on the outside walls. Okay? Morgan, you're going to know why because you're a supermarket expert. What's on the outside walls of every supermarket? Produce. What else? Dairy and meat. Okay? The real food in any store is on the outside walls. What's in the aisles? Give me some food items that you find in the aisles at IGA. Chips, Velveeta, Little Debbie, or as I like to refer to as Big Deborah. You'll find her in the aisles. All of the processed foods are in the aisle. So when you go in to shop, shop on the outside walls. Another tip that you can use for shopping is the items that have like a little tag, and I don't know if IGA does this or not, for WIC, so that if you're using WIC vouchers, women and infant children, then that's a food that will be covered by WIC. What that means is the government gives assistance for young mothers with new children, probably up to about 5 years old, and there are certain items that qualify and certain items that don't qualify. For example, you can't use your WIC to buy Little Debbie's, right? I don't think that works. There you go. So whole grain healthy foods. So if you see that there is a WIC sticker beside of a food item, that means it's probably nutritious. It's probably really food. Okay, yeah. At some point you'll have those up so you can look and shop for those items, and those are going to be the healthy items. Main point number 2 was avoid food products containing ingredients that are unfamiliar, unpronounceable, more than 5 in number, and high fructose corn syrup. Just for kicks and giggles, this is breakfast this morning, and they're supposed to list the ingredients in the order of which is most prevalent. All right, here we go. So I don't know if you can see this or not, but that whole bit of writing there are the ingredients. Okay? So ingredients, whole wheat flour is number 1. That sounds pretty good. Enriched wheat flour, niacin, reduced iron, thiamine, mononitrate, riboflavin, folic acid, water, chocolate coating, sugar, hydrogenated palm kernel oil, cocoa processed with alkali, soy, lecithin, salt, sodium and phosphate, salt, cinnamon, dry honey solids. I don't even know what that is. That honeycomb? I have no idea. Soy, lecithin, sodium, aluminum phosphate, mono and digold, can't pronounce it, and it goes on. And then at the very end, it has the dyes that are included in it. And then at the very bottom, it says contains wheat, soy, milk, and eggs. Okay, so that attempt down there, wheat, soy, milk, and eggs, those 4 ingredients are recognizable. And so if you were to make donuts in your home, you would probably use flour. For chocolate, you would use some cocoa powder, sugar, and milk. And you would make those donuts. You'd either bake them or fry them, and they would rot in a couple of days. How long do you think these will take to rot? Probably last for a really, really long time. Okay? So that's what the second main point is. And then the third main point, avoid food products that make health claims. In other words, the very fact that the American Heart Association currently bestows for a fee its Heart Healthy seal of approval on Lucky Charms, Cocoa Puffs, and Trix cereals, Yoo-Hoo light chocolate drink, and Healthy Choices premium caramel swirl ice cream sandwich. All of those make a claim that they are heart healthy. What does that tell you about food marketing? It's all about money. It's all about marketing, and you can pay for those seals. You realize that if something says light, especially if it's spelled L-I-T-E, like L-I-T-E ranch dressing, light ranch dressing. Let me tell you, there's no such thing as light ranch dressing. Ranch dressing is made from heavy cream, and it's delicious because of that. It's filled with fat. When you make it light, it's either going to be watery and not really ranch dressing, or it's simply called light because it's light in color. So don't be fooled by claims of light products. Sometimes it just means that that's their color, not their fat content. So this is an example of a definition argument because the author is making a claim we should eat ordinary food. And he is defining that claim by giving you a set of criteria and examining whether or not food items meet that criteria. That's going to be your first assignment in this class. So it's not going to be due until end of next week. So let your wheels be turning about how can you write an essay like this where you marshal support, where you organize it such as this, where you're using a set of criteria to define something about which you are presenting an argument. So that's going to be the assignment, and that's why we've read this particular article. Remember, Purdue Online Writing Lab is where you're going to find examples of how to do MLA, APA, Chicago, Turabian, whatever type of formatting you're talking about. So what we want to see is how to do an APA format paper. Okay, so right here, in APA formatting, one of the major differences from MLA is that you include a title page. And your title page includes the title of your essay, your name, the university name, the course, the professor, and the date. Okay, so that's a lot. It also includes what we call a running head. That's in all capital letters. It's the title. And that running head is actually going to show up on the next page as well. Okay? You can look at the sample APA format paper that they have and see the formatting with commentary. And basically that title page is going to begin roughly at about a third of the way down the paper. Okay? So let's go ahead and open up a Google Doc and let's do a title page in APA format. Okay, first thing I want to do is make sure that I'm using Times New Roman 12-point font double spaced. And I suggest you do this along with me or write down notes. We want it to be centered. And remember I said we're going to come down about a third of the way. So if I go ahead and change my line spacing to double, about 4 enters is going to get you down to that spot. And today's paper, you're going to do a quick summary of this essay. And we're going to title it Summary of Michael Pollan's Eat Food, Food Defined. Okay? If I go back and look at this, I see that beneath that, I'm going to have my name. And me read this. Title of the paper, the author's name, the institutional affiliation. So this is Campbellsville University. Professional paper should also include the author note. A student paper should include the course number and the name, instructor name, and assignment due date. So those three things go: course number and name. This is English 112, Freshman Composition 2. The instructor name and the due date. And if you look at the due date on this one, it's not in inverted order like we did in MLA format. You do not have to include an abstract in your papers for me, but you do have to have that APA formatting and a title page. Let's go ahead and insert the running head. So we're going to do it by inserting a page number first. We want to choose the page numbering, and let me see if it numbers the title page. I always forget. Yeah, number the title page. You'll notice here that when we go to insert page numbers, there is an option to not number the title page. Some professors may ask you to not title or not number the title page. I'm going to ask you to number the title page, and you want the one that's in the upper right hand corner. So that means it's going to insert a 1 on page 1, a 2 on 2, and so forth. You want to make sure that you change that to Times New Roman 12. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to left justified, and I'm going to, in all capitals, put summary of Michael Pollan. And I'm going to leave it at that. Okay? I'm going to shorten the title. And we'll tab that back over to the right. Okay. And so that's going to put that on every page. Okay, everybody good with the title page? Understand what you need to put on it? Okay, now I'm going to go back to left justification for my next page, and I'm going to do a page break. Control Enter gives me a page break. Did everybody catch that? Control Enter to insert a page break. Now, on the second page, go back to the example. You do include the title again at the top of the page. So I'm going to come back up here. I'm going to grab my title. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it at the top. Okay, so what I want you to do is write a basic summary of this essay using the APA formatting. So what I'm going to look at is that you've got a title page, you've got the running head, you've got the page numbers, and you're using APA format. So pre-writing is really just about thinking. So today I want you to begin thinking about what could I potentially write about as a topic for a definition argument. Remember, I said to you earlier in the week that all writing could be classified as argument because you are putting forth an idea and it's your job as the writer to convince the reader that you are correct. So you're writing an argument in the sense that you're putting forth an idea. What you're doing in this essay is you're defining a particular idea. So think back to the first essay that we read this week about food. He defined food by giving us 3 criteria and 3 tips, if you will. Remember, it's about if your great-grandmother wouldn't have recognized it as food, it's not food. If it has ingredients in it that you can't pronounce, then it's not food. So he talked about all these things. These are the criteria. And then looking at different items, does the Twinkie meet the definition of food? Well, no, because it fails to meet in these criteria. So what is it that you could define and give criteria for? And that's going to prove to be the structure, the organization of this essay. So you're going to make a definitional claim on a controversial issue that focuses on a key term. I'm going to tell you it doesn't necessarily have to be controversial in the conventional sense. Okay? It could be something pretty mundane that people don't typically get embroiled in controversy over. Okay? Food doesn't necessarily have to be a controversial topic, right? So here is a template that you can use as your thesis statement. Blank is a blank because it has feature 1, 2, and 3. So just like in the food essay where he gave the 3 criteria, he's saying food is this because it has, and he gave those 3 criteria. So you can use that as kind of a template on which to hang your thesis. Here's the example. Hate speech is free speech protected by the First Amendment because it has, and then you would list the 3 features that you're going to talk about. Hunting is cruelty to animals because it has, and then you talk about reasons why it has those things. So today I want you to begin just by thinking, what sort of topic could you write about? This morning I jotted down just some ideas of some abstract nouns that you could define. Poverty, beauty, respect, family, rudeness, success, laziness. It could be more concrete. Those are all some very abstract nouns. It could be something more concrete. Being a Republican is. Define what that means to you. That would be a controversial topic right now, probably. So anything related in the political arena could be something that you could define. Something related to the academic arena. You know, an honor student is. And you could define what an honor student is. So you see where I'm going with this? This could be any number of things. You're not going to have to do research for this because it's going to be based on your own experience. It's based on your wisdom and expertise as a wise and sagacious 17 or 18-year-old, based on all the experiences that you've had. So today, that's what I want you to do. I'll begin thinking about a topic and see if you can plug it into that template. Now, think about what's at stake. That's what step 2 encourages you to do. Does nearly everyone agree with you? If so, then your claim probably isn't interesting or important. Who argues the opposite of your claim? I think someone mentioned earlier this week that in writing an argument, maybe in your sophomore year, you forgot to put in the counter argument. So you've got to think about, how do you refute the opposition? Why or how do they benefit from a different definition? Are you changing the definition? Are you looking at something maybe in a non-traditional light? And then step 3 is to list the criteria. So this would be the A, B, and C that's listed in that template. And so it says which criteria are necessary for blank to be a blank, which are the most important. Does your case in point meet all the criteria? So you think back to the first essay that we read, Eat Food, Food Defined. We pointed out that his main points were subheadings. He had 3 of those that were in bold. In this essay, you can consider doing that, possibly using headings in your essay in order to organize the 3 criteria for your definition. And he used boldface type in order to do that. And each of those headings was multi-paragraphs. So it wasn't just one paragraph per criteria. Now, I've provided you with another document. It's called Essay 1 Pre-Writing. And if you want to think about how to structure this as you're pre-writing, for your definitional argument essay, number 1, introduce the issue and state the claim. That's your thesis. Define the key terms. So if you think back to that first model essay that we read, he did just that. There's one paragraph that introduces the thesis. There's a second paragraph that defines the key terms. The third paragraph, so just think of these as paragraph numbers. The third paragraph is the first criterion and argument that your case meets your definition. He used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 paragraphs in that section. So this could be a multi-paragraph section. Then section 4 is your second criteria. His was avoid food products containing ingredients that are unfamiliar, unpronounceable, and so on. He used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 paragraphs in that particular section. Then present your third criterion. So at minimum, you're going to have 3 criterion for this. You could have more than that. And in his third criteria, he used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually 5. This is the last one's a conclusion. Anticipate and respond to possible objections and arguments. That's the counter argument. And then conclude with or return to the big picture, what's at stake, why your argument is important. How many paragraphs is this essay going to be? Is it going to be 5? No, it's going to be more than 5. So we're moving well beyond the 5-paragraph model in this class. This is the second level of college composition. So we don't write 5-paragraph essays anymore. This is probably going to be at minimum 7 paragraphs, but I would suggest that 3, 4, and 5 have multi-paragraph development. They could be shorter paragraphs. It doesn't have to be as long as his paragraph development, but if you looked at the syllabus carefully, you saw that essays in this class are 1,000 words. So you're going to have quite a bit of development in order to get to 1,000 words in an essay. Minimum. In order to get to, Campbellsville University says you have to write X number of words to get credit for English 112. So given the design of the syllabus and the number of essays, you've got to write 1,000 at least in each. And some, your research paper will have more than 1,000. It'll be 1,500. And then there's some kind of a fleshed out argument essay proposal with some questions for you to consider that correlate to those 7 sections in the essay.